Hi everyone. Today I've come with yet another reflection. This is from the book of Esther. As part of Bible Marathon, I'm reading Bible for 30 minutes every day. And I get book of Judith and book of Esther frequently. And when I go through that, every time I get some insights. This particular insight I wanted to share with all of you because I could relate to that very well. And I'm sure many of us could relate to that. Queen Esther was miraculously put in that position by God to save Jewish community from the evil hands of Haman. Haman wanted to annihilate the entire Jewish community, but God used Esther to save his people. Esther was a simple and pious woman who wanted to lead a quiet life. But the position God gave her, it was a burden for her. It's very obvious in the prayer that she made, which is given in the book of Esther, chapter 14, verse 15 onwards. Let me just read that. You have knowledge of all things, and you know that I hate the splendor of the wicked and abhor the bed of uncircumcised and of any alien. You know my necessity, that I abhor the sign of my proud position, which is upon my head on the days when I appear in public. I abhor it as a menstruous rag, and I do not wear it on the days when I am at leisure. And your servant has not eaten at Haman's table, and I have not honored the king's feast or drunk the wine of the libations. Your servant has had no joy since the day that I was brought here until now, except in you, O Lord God of Abraham. O God, whose might is over all, hear the voice of the despairing and save us from the hands of evildoers, and save me from my fear. So it's very evident from this prayer that position, that proud position of the queen was a burden for her. But God used her position to save the entire Jewish community. So many a times the position that God gives us, it's a burden for us. Sometimes it may be the position of job, or it may be a position within your family as a husband or as a wife, as a mother, as a father, as a daughter-in-law. It may be a burden for us. But if we happily accept that and surrender to God's will, God can use that for a greater purpose. So there were many examples that came to my mind. I know a person for whom the job was a burden. It was very difficult for him to handle the job pressure. But he continued in that job. Because of that job, he was able to sustain his family. He was able to give good education to his children. He was able to give a stable home for his wife and his children. So even though the job was a burden for him, God used that for a greater purpose and gave the stability to his family through that job. So sometimes some of these positions may be a burden for us, but if we accept that happily, if we accept that sacrifice, God can convert that into a blessing. Another example that came to my mind is I know a person for whom the marriage was a burden. There were some marital issues and they were on the verge of divorce, but he chose to forgive his wife. There was some misunderstanding between them, but he chose to forgive. Because of that, now they are leading a happy life and their daughter has a mother and a father and a stable home. So, but initially for him, that position of a husband was a burden. So many a times we could relate to many of these positions. Many of these positions may be a burden for us, but if we happily accept that, God can convert that to a blessing. Sometimes after marriage, you may go to a family where there is no prayer or where there is lot of darkness. But instead of complaining, God is sending you there to bring His light. So instead of complaining, if you accept it as God's will, if you surrender to His will, God will use you to spread His light there and save that entire family. So many a times, many of these positions may be a burden for us, but that time, think about the position that Esther had. It was a very difficult position for her, the position of a queen. But God used that position, God used that burden and saved the entire Jewish community. So we all could see Esther in ourselves. So we all, God gave her as a role model for us. So when these positions are burden for us, just surrender to God's will, take it from God's hand. God will definitely convert that burden into a blessing. So this particular reflection or this particular insight has really helped me, and I could relate to that very well, and I wanted to share this with all of you. Hope you all like it. God bless you all. Thank you.